Here's your union update for this week. Today is Monday, July 27th. I'm your host and chapter president, Jana Blunt. I'll try to keep this brief. Let's split the video into two basic parts: last week's news and what to expect for this week. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, activate new video notifications, sign up for my direct email updates, follow my newly created Twitter account for live event reporting, join our private Facebook group, and check out our shared Google Drive. Links for each of those items are in the video description. Oh, and weekly lunch worksite meetings on top there. So, if you didn't participate in Friday's panel that SEIU blasted everyone about several times asking for help, you did miss out. I'll get you up to speed. If you recall, the county recently decided to drop $800,000 on a new Office of Equity. How this is going to go is anyone's guess, of course. One of this office's, quote, pillars is LEARN, L-E-R-N, which stands for Sonoma County Latinx Employee Resource Network. LEARN held a panel on Friday, the first of what they hope will be many, and this panel on Friday was called Caminos, the Pathway of the Latinx Employee. In addition to the host, 3 managers were slated to speak about their experiences climbing the ranks as a Latinx county employee. So in the weeks and months leading up to this panel, shit really started hitting the fan at different human services locations. Doubtful this is news to anyone, as half of you work at HSD and the other half has heard me harp about their problems during this pandemic more than once. And not to rank egregiousness, because things are happening everywhere, but one of the absolute worst situations for staff and clients alike right now, countywide, has been economic assistance at the Paulin building since their lobby reopened. They steadily increased the amount of staff on site, regardless of telework having increased productivity by up to 40%. The amount of people HSD management decided could be let in the lobby was far higher than our chief steward felt is safe. When it comes to the amount of people greeting the public outside of the building, there's often up to like 7 staff members out there, not including a security guard, helping one person at a time. Staff has repeatedly voiced their concern about this, about excessive, dense staffing, because it means increased exposure for everyone involved. So economic assistance employs a lot of what they call HSAs, and that stands for Human Services Aides. This group of folks happens to be entirely composed of Latino women. HSAs aren't the only job class there who are being exposed to the public, but they're definitely the front line. So the EA lobby at Paulin has encountered 3, 4, maybe more, I'm not up to date, COVID-19 exposures in the last week or two. Exposure on its own is bad enough, right? But not only is it happening over and over, but HSD still hasn't established an actual protocol to handle this group of the public. Think about this. No protocol. Busiest lobby in the county. No responsibility to move the client perhaps farther away from other members of the public if they self-report. We're talking moms and babies. No additional PPE for the infected person or the staff member helping them. No decontamination plan for staff or the nearby public after that person has been helped. Okay, why am I going into all this, and what the hell does it have to do with the panel on Friday? Well, we've gone to supervisors about these problems. We've gone to managers, we've gone to the ASO, we've gone to HR. But the person who holds the most responsibility for the safety and the welfare for EA's staff and the public they serve, and the person at which the buck stops, is the department head. Our frontline group of HSAs reached out to this person, whose name is Karen Fees, with a basic request to meet overexposure issues. Karen Fees declined. Karen Fees declined to meet with her staff. Karen Fees instructed our HSAs instead to, quote, talk to SEIU and, quote, talk to HR to fix the issues in her department. I don't even know how that's supposed to work, but that's her response. So this department head happened to be one of the speakers at Caminos, last Friday's panel. So our resilient and brave group of HSAs decided to band together and make contact with Karen this way. Oh, and they did. We entered the panel and it began. Lots of yapping about how to become a manager ensued. In this panel, there was the option to send questions over to panelists in this private Q&A option. It was a box. There's also the option in that format to post in a separate section for public chat. And that's how we invaded. Not long after the panel began, our HSAs, along with union staff and other county employees at EA and throughout the county, thank you, by the way, just collectively bombarded. I wanted to share some of the brave questions and concerns that were raised. This is just one of 2 slides. If you care to read them, and I suggest you do to greater understand what's going on with your coworkers, please feel free to pause the video and take your time. So as the chat room filled with voices, there was 0 response from the host and the panelists for some time, but as it wore on, you could see it in her face. We asked question after question and made her actions, or inactions rather, public. Karen's face dropped and her skin paled. Finally, she couldn't hide from us or ignore us. The irony of the purpose of Learn was not lost on us. While the personal experiences of the speakers are of course valuable, we cannot let our frontline Latinx sisters and brothers' voices be silenced in this time. Here's a second page of quality messages from our HSA heroes and their allies. Look at that one in the middle there. I don't choose to lose my life so you can have a good name. At first, after everything was over, those of us who went in there to do that made the understandable point that Karen Fees skated pretty clean on this panel. A response to our invasion did come late in the panel, but it was disappointing and it was insulting. Nothing surprising. It's exactly what we would have expected. I'm trying to let people know, especially if they feel disappointed, that something big happened that day. It shifted us. We're in a palpably different place than we were even 1 week ago. I do have proof that will back this up. It's not just a feeling I have. I'll get to that in a second. Our voices are being heard. But in the meantime, in case anyone feels the sentiments of our HSAs are overblown, or you feel like it's kind of a dramatic thing, let me remind you of what we're dealing with at the county. Again, I can just stick to HSD for plenty of examples. So again, Paul went alone 3 or 4 times in the last week with no protocol. Garbage communication from their management informing us of more and more exposures, lacking any information of actual value. Kids at Valley of the Moon Children's Center becoming infected, that's going around. Staff is being quarantined there, other people being brought in. South County HSD employees have also been exposed and are currently in quarantine. What are we looking forward to if this course continues as is? Because unfortunately, the response from Sonoma County officials is looking pretty status quo. And would you like to see what I mean by status quo? Here's the first page of Google results. Public sector employees all over the county, all over the country are dying. I've read message boards and online obituaries. I'm not even talking about doctors and nurses, which in itself is an entirely other crisis that needs to be spoken on. But what I'm talking about right now are administrative public health workers, city employees, public works staff, county frontline workers, many of whom had the ability to telework, but were denied when they made the request to do so. Our HSAs are not overreacting. They're trying to survive. And I'm deeply proud of how brave and forceful all of you were for putting your reality out there on the line. This is only the beginning of our mission to hold Karen Fees responsible for her inaction and utter lack of empathy. So in conclusion on this, shame on Karen Fees. And once we're done with Karen, don't think that's the end. Today, the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors began receiving budget cut presentations by department heads. The board's goal is to make whatever adjustments are needed to address about a $45 million shortfall due to revenue declines associated with the COVID-19 pandemic and economic downturn. I spent all day today, which is Monday, live tweeting the happenings, and will do so tomorrow, Tuesday, as well. The budget workshops will be followed by public budget hearings, tentatively scheduled for the first and second week of September, ending with final approval of a 2020 to 2021 fiscal plan. And of course, as you can see here, we're halfway through the all-day hearings. No budget decisions are being made during these, but department heads are able to briefly explain what's essentially going to happen to them if the current proposed budget is approved as it's written. That brings us to layoffs. Here's what we're looking at. Before I go into it, notice the red column is a total proposed deletion. Human beings, filled positions, you and me, are the column immediately to the left, the one that's called filled FTE identified for deletion. So that means human beings in 4 departments: the clerk, recorder, assessor, registrar of voters, the district attorney, Department of Health Services, and the sheriff. So here's what there is to know. These numbers aren't official. The presentations today and tomorrow explain why these deletions will be a bad idea. The county is looking at real cuts, again, about $45 million, but this is not taking into account the $150 million the county just received from PG&E, or the existing $49 million rainy day fund that they have. Money from both of these funds, PG&E and just the general surplus, are fully available to the board to keep things afloat and to do whatever they want to do. It's not allocated to anything specifically. There's still some federal and state funding coming. The amounts coming haven't been 100% determined because another stimulus is coming. But in spite of that, layoffs will be recommended on an official basis on August 18th. Any layoffs that do occur will be effective October 8th. So the CAO's office from now till then is looking into new ways to lobby for more funds. Let me just give you a brief rundown of what the board's feelings are about the PG&E money in particular, since it's such a large amount. Shirley Zane was the most vocally outspoken when it comes to anger at kind of the order of operations. She's pissed off, understandably so, that talks about the PG&E money isn't happening before these budget conversations. That makes sense. James Gore spoke the most conservatively about it when it comes to warning everyone that, you know, keeping the county afloat isn't the only thing that money needs to be used for. Susan Gorin focused primarily on the Sonoma Valley, which are her constituents, of course, and then readying Sonoma Valley for future emergencies. Linda Hopkins rightly said that the way that we're looking at our budget in an isolated instead of a holistic way, kind of to echo what Shirley Zane said, is stupid. It'll ultimately be up to this board, though, the Board of Supervisors, to determine how much of the PG&E money they're comfortable using. So, although October 8th will be here before we know it, we're not at a point yet where we know exactly what's going to happen. We don't even know what the numbers are going to be. We know it's not going to be more than 24 current employees, but it's definitely going to be less. I can tell you that much. I just don't know how much lower it'll be. What's definitely called for right now is disgust. There's no need for anyone to be afraid. It's too soon because we don't know what we're afraid of, but you should definitely be disgusted by the fact that in spite of everything you've done in the past 3 to 4 years to keep our community afloat, you're still just an expendable asset at the end of the day. For now, to move on, I just want you to know that our emails to the Board of Supervisors are working. As you'd better know by now, there's only a few days left of our email campaign to the Board of Supervisors. We're doing this to ensure that they understand how important telework and flexibility are to our safety, to the safety of our public, and also to our many members who have kids with messed up school schedules. Supervisor Shirley Zane, in addition to Christina Kramer, who is our head of HR, both individually made a big deal of this in Monday's budget talks today. It's the first time they've addressed it, especially in this forum, and it's kicked off a conversation among them. We now have additional leverage at the bargaining table on Thursday to secure this for ourselves. So, if you haven't yet emailed the Board of Soups, 3 things to know. Number 1, the work is already done. We've emailed you a few times the email address of your soup and a list of talking points from which you could just pick and choose. Copy and paste, click send, and you're done. Number 2, forward me what you've sent and you'll be entered into my drawing for one of many cash and gift card prizes. The deadline is this Thursday, July 30th at 5 p.m. The drawing will be this Friday, the 31st, and that's when the winners will be called. And lastly, of the 3, our success with this and how soon we succeed may literally have life or death consequences for you, for me, for someone you work with, or someone you've served. So there's really no reason to not jump on if you haven't already. Shame on you if you haven't and you won't. I'll just put it that way. Oh, I said it. Here's our calendar for the week. CDC's worksite meeting is Tuesday at noon. My countywide worksite meeting is every Wednesday at noon. I hope to see you there. Keep an eye out for the weekly Zoom invite for mine. And if you work at the CDC, Michael Valoria is going to be the one who sends the Zoom link if he hasn't already. The Wednesday event, the weekly lunchtime worksite meeting, is also listed in our Facebook group. So I'll just leave you with this. If anyone you work with ever complains that the union is not communicating, please feel free to give them a flat tire, but also please forward them to my YouTube channel, our Facebook group, our email list, and my Twitter handle. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great week.